Hey there, listeners. It's Monday, June 22nd. This is live stream number 103, and today we are speaking with Prateek Dixit of Pocket FM. Prateek, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Dhruv. Thanks a lot for inviting me. And yeah, really excited to be here.
All right,
I'm
Prateek, let's get started. Fresh Monday energy. So let's introduce Pocket FM. What are the numbers like? What does the business do? Where all are you present? Paint a picture so that we can dive deeper into some of this stuff with you.
Yeah, I think so. Pocket FM is world's largest AI native storytelling platform. Uh, with I think we have last month. I think we have hit 450 million ARR with over 250 million registered user globally. We are one of the highest engaging product across all the content platforms with engagement of 150 minutes every day. We stream around 12 billion minutes month, 12 billion minutes every single month, which is increasing like 10% month and month. Uh, and yeah, I think we currently operate in 20 plus countries, starting from India to US to Europe. We are now expanding to some of the markets in SEA as well. So it's a truly global platform which serves each and every language across the globe. Yeah.
And when you talk about these minutes, these are video minutes, these are audio minutes, and
These are audio minutes, right? So we are a storytelling platform for audio format.
video in itself, like Netflix. I mean, they took a time. I mean, they took their own sweet time to build this habit where you binge watch content for like hours and hours, and they tried. I mean, it's a full human psychology and science experiment at play, right? The founder, I think the CEO said, where their biggest enemy is sleep. Like, what do you think about the audio category? Why did you guys get excited about audio in general?
Yeah, I think so. Before we started audio, I think the one single most important insight was that audio is a passive consumption format as opposed to video, which is more foreground in nature. So let's say if you consume any video OTT platforms, you generally consume during like weekends or during night because that's where you get consistent foreground time, right? Let's say if I ask you a very simple question, when do people watch movies and web series, right? It's mostly during weekends and maybe like after dinner, right? But the fact about audio is that it's a passive consumption, right? You can consume on the go, right? You can consume while you're traveling, you can consume while you're working, you can consume like the entire 24/7 life cycle of your week, right? So I think that's basically in favor of this binge listening because users can consume audio anytime on the go. Apart from that, the way we have innovated content in general, which is very fast paced in nature, very short form bingeable episodes, you have to basically the every episode is designed in such a way where users are actually pulled for next episode. I think that's also something that has helped in creating this quick binge worthy loops.
Prateek, can you tell us about maybe what's been one of the biggest things inside the company over the last couple of years, which is this transition to a truly AI native storytelling platform? How has it impacted the top line, even the bottom line?
Yeah, I think so. When you talk about most of the current platforms, one of the single most important thing for growing any OTT or content platform is finding blockbusters, right? Because most of the OTT platforms have to have, let's say, some few blockbusters every single month, right? Now, this entire process of finding blockbuster is initially used to be very cumbersome, right? Because you had to have subjective evaluation. Let's say if we have 100 scripts or 1,000 scripts, how do you understand which show will become blockbuster, right? Before even you produce that, right? That's a typical way of, let's say, discovering a blockbuster, right? Now, what Pocket did in last 2 years was that we entirely changed this process of finding and discovering blockbuster using AI native engine, right? So the way it works is that where we create these very small pilots of concepts, and these concepts could be in the range from 1,000 to 5,000 in a month, right? And we distribute these pilots to social media, be it Meta, be it YouTube, be it TikTok, right? And we get a lot of data from from the users on social media. We also distribute this content within app as well to get a lot of insights and signals to understand which show could be a potential blockbuster. And this entire production cycle, production to testing cycle, is a very cheap cycle in terms of cost and a very fast cycle as well, right? So essentially, you can launch 1,000 concepts in a week and get to know which particular show has more potential to be a blockbuster, right? So while we transition this to this process, our number of blockbuster that we used to launch pre this process and post this process actually 10x, right? And this helped in pocket going from 200 million ARR to 450 million ARR in just 1 year, right? So this was one of the craziest sort of like innovation that Pocket did, with which I think we have done 100% growth year on year.
What I find really fascinating is that some of these blockbusters actually have do 100, if not $1 million, at least 100 crore rupees in revenue on their
Yeah,
own, like standalone startups.
yeah, yeah. I think so. We have like a few shows. I think My Vampire System has done more than $100 million revenue globally, right? So that's one of the
Wow.
biggest blockbuster in Pocket, right? Then we have Saving Nora, which has done more than $60 million revenue globally. And this specific show is basically are in 8 different languages, right? So Saving Nora will be Ek Ladki Ko Dekha in Hindi. It'll be called something else in Tamil, Telugu, right? So we have built, of course, something called Atlas, which is a localization engine, which takes a show, convert that into a different language in a locally adapted format, so that you can launch one show into 20 different languages with just a click of button, right? So this has really helped us in scaling one show to multiple languages in a matter of no time as well, right? So yeah, I think we have a lot of blockbusters, and the power is the distribution. You can distribute one content to 20 plus languages within matter of days using AI.
And let's talk a little bit about what's in it for creators. And
Yeah.
suppose I'm a creator, I have an idea for a show. I come to you. Where does the journey of that show start, and what does it look like towards becoming a blockbuster?
Yeah.
And
So
what does the creator get
yeah.
out of it?
So well, I mentioned, right. I mean, with Pocket has like biggest one of the biggest distribution platform with 250 million registered users. On the creator economy side, I think Pocket has 300,000 creators at this point, which is growing significantly. I think we expect to have 1 million creators by end of this year, right? Now, why is this increasing, right? Because of two things. One is Pocket has distribution, global distribution, which generally creators didn't have before. If you look at the traditional publishing way of style, I think there's always this gatekeeping, right? But in Pockets, where users decide what works, what doesn't work, gatekeepers don't decide that, right? So that's why I think creators are really willing to work within Pocket platform. And within Pocket, I think what we have worked on is something called Creator Suite, where it's a three sort of like layered platform. The first platform within that suite is where you can use a product that we are working on for writing assistant, right? Now if you think about writing in general, right, writing consists of two things. One is the art, which is your concept, creativity, and the craft part, which is where you construct your episode, cliffhanger, structure your plots and things like those, right? So our belief is that while the art remains with writers, the craft can actually be automated using AI, right? So the product that we have worked within suite of product is a writer assistant, where writers can use this assistant to write long form, very high quality stories, and they can write more within, let's say, a day, which we used to before, let's say, without this tool itself, right? So that's the first product, which is a writing product, right, which helps writers in writing high quality long form stories, right? The second product of the suite is the production part, right? Because you have the text story, you also have to now produce that story into an audio format, right, to be able to distribute in Pocket FM, right? So the production suite basically helps writer to create AI audio series, just a click of button, right, where they can select which voice they want to produce with. They can select the mastering levels, the BGM, the SFX, and all those things, right? So that's a completely AI production suite that writers can use to convert their text content to a fully fledged AI audio series, right? Now, the third, which is a very important part as part of the journey, is the multiplier effect, which is where now you can convert your content in one language to 20 different languages, right? Let's say if I'm a creator from, let's say, Kanpur, small town of Kanpur in India, I write in Hindi, I create my original Hindi audio series. Now, with the help of adaptation tool, I can convert my Hindi audio series to Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, English, Spanish, German, French, and I can distribute my content to different countries with the help of Pockets distribution, right? So this has been a major unlock for creators where they can now access Pockets distribution, in fact, global distribution with the help of AI, right? So the writing product, the production product, and the localization product. These are basically three of the most important pillars of the creator seed that we have launched.
Pratik, there's this expression called loss in translation, right? So very often what happens when you takes a piece of content and adapt it into a different languages, sometimes the cultural nuance is lost. I'm wondering if technology allows us to preserve or rather carry over that cultural nuance as well as we move from one geography to the next or one language, one dialect to the next.
Yeah. I think you're spot on Dhruv, in that sense. I mean, one of the most complicated part of I think this entire adaptation model was the cultural transfer, right? Because I feel localization is still easy, right? You can like change names, you can change cities, you can change countries, but let's say the way a wedding happens in India as opposed to the way wedding happens in US is very different, right? I mean, you can't just let's say have a Indian plot or Indian wedding process and convert it to a US story by not changing, let's say, the way wedding happens in India, sorry, US, right? So I think what we have built is a very deep cultural playbook. We call it as culture Bible, right? And it's like it's something that is of course not going to be perfect. And it's sort of like we keep on building this culture Bible for as many shows as possible. So we have a culture Bible for most of the language pairs, right? So you would have, let's say, culture Bible for English cross US. You would have a culture Bible for, let's say, India cross China, India cross Germany, India cross Spanish, India cross Korea, right? Now, what this help is basically this culture Bible helps us in basically adapting these very deep culture nuances from one language to other languages, right? Now, the other part that we have built on top of this is basically a learning method, which basically takes this culture Bible and then self corrects as, let's say, we as the model sees more and more shows, right? So this culture Bible keeps on improving as we produce more shows and as we get more data from our users as well, right? So I think these two parts have helped in making sure that the culture nuances stays very close to that specific language and that specific country. So,
I think this is fascinating. I think you mentioned one problem that you've solved very nicely with these culture bibles, but any other problems while scaling globally, because 70% of your revenue comes from
yeah.
US, I believe. Any other globalization problems that you've solved at Pocket FM that you found were very interesting
Yeah,
and
I
didn't
think
think?
so. One of the other key problem when we were scaling, of course, like US, was that having local content, right? Because while adaptation solves a lot of it, but you still need to have local concepts, right? By local concept, I mean, let's say, uh, mythology works really good in India, right? But it might not work that well in US, right? In US, maybe romantasy works a lot or lit RPG works a lot, right? So having a local catalog of content was one of the most important part as we scaled up US.
And
And
get that local content. Were you changing incentives for creators across different countries?
yeah, so I think to get local content, I think you need to scale up your UGC community, the creator product, to more and more languages, right? Let's say if I have to scale up crime for say, right? Now crime is really big in Germany, right? Of course it's big in US as well, but crime is one of the biggest genre in US. Sorry, in Germany, right? Now if you have to scale up Germany, you need to have crime genre as well, right? Now so the biggest of like I'll not say blocker. The biggest challenge as we scale up these market was that how to get, let's say, these local genres, local content from local creators, right? And the only solution to that scaling that was basically to launch UGC, scale UGC, scale creator community to these countries. Apart from that, we also like, of course, done partnership with local publishers as well. So we work with a lot of local publishers to get their local content to seed initial stages as well.
So you guys obviously have very, very impressive revenue numbers. I'm wondering what lessons have you guys learned along the way about pricing these subscription-based entertainment products,
Yeah.
and more so for India?
Yeah, I think so. Our pricing is slightly different from what other products have to offer to. I think so. We have like three different sort of like ways to monetize users. First of all, it's a completely freemium model, right? So you don't have to pay to consume content at all, right? I mean, you can consume the platform for free for days without even need to pay for the content, right? Unlike, let's say, other OTT platforms, right? So the way I think we monetize is by the means of binge listening, right? So we give users 1 hour of free content every single day across all the shows. But if you really want to binge listen that show on the same day, right? Let's say if you want to binge listen that show for 3 hours in that day, you have to pay for that additional 2 hours of content, right? Otherwise, you can come tomorrow, get another free hour of content, and then just not pay for the content, right? So it's a very innovative model. Now, this has helped us in having very peak retention, engagement retention, because as you mentioned, India is like relatively hard market to monetize in general, right? Especially if you want to, if you have a pure VIP product or pure monetizable product, right? So this freemium model has helped Pocket in maintaining high number of monthly active users, one of the highest industry retention, because users can just consume for free, right? Now, these free users we monetize through advertisement, right? Because you still have to monetize these free users, right? So advertisement is the way to monetize these free users, right? Now, the users who want to binge listen on the same day, they use something called paper purchase, right, or pay per view, right? So they can purchase these coins of let's say 9 rupees, 19 rupees, 29 rupees, right? They don't have to overcommit to subscription, or they don't have to go through this vicious auto pay
So
cycle.
microtransactions. But did you start off with this model, or were
We
you?
did. So we innovated this model in India. Yeah. So we started with this model, and this model is now scaling up globally as well, right? So ad model and microtransaction model is sort of like contributes to all of most of our revenue at this point.
What's the split between ad versus
Ad
microtransactions?
contributes to 20%, 22%, and IAP contributes to 80%, 78%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I read about the 11 Labs partnership that you've gone into recently, and voice is a big part of your stack and the product offering itself, right?
Yeah.
So, how does that partnership benefit you, and why not go for an Indian partner?
Yeah, I think so. This partnership was done like a couple of years back, and 11 Labs for sure is one of the better players in terms of like TTS. It's a text to speech model. Now, the thing about TTS is that they are like multiple use cases of TTS, right? One is more like call center like use case, right? Where it's more of a transactional use case, right? You don't care about, let's say, emotions, dialogue, or expressive nature of TTS, right? In case of Pocket, it's the extreme right. You do care about dialogues, you do care about expressions, you do care about emotions, you do care about how a character is delivering a particular dialogue, right? And it's a very, very complex problem statement, right? So with 11 Labs being one of the best, especially at this point in terms of expressive TTS, we wanted to, of course, work with them to scale this up, right? While other partners are good at transactional TTS, they weren't so good at expressive TTS, so, right? And that's why I think we went ahead with 11 Labs. While we work closely with 11 Labs, we're also building in-house models as well, because of the fact that Pocket has one of the best data to train expressive TTS, right? So we have 300,000 hours of content of really, really high quality expressive data, right? We feel that if we really have to build the best expressive TTS, I think Pocket can do that. So while we work with 11 Labs in parallel, we're also focusing on building something internally as well, so that the model can do better in terms of storytelling task, right? We still feel that there's still some gap to be filled between where 11 Labs is and where the best storytelling content can be, right? I think, and as a company, we want to fill that gap by creating our own models.
As we go further down this road of voice cloning and synthetic voice, Pratik, I'm wondering if you guys, or I'm curious if you guys internally have a benchmark for expressive TTS, right? Is there a movie, a show, something where you thought
Yeah.
the voice work was so incredible?
Yeah. So I think we don't have to go outside our platform. I think we have a lot of, I think, high quality shows within Pocket itself, right? I mean, there's a show called Primal Hunter. There's show called Solo Leveling. It's one of the biggest anime IPs ever. It's an audio series format, right? I think if you just listen to these two shows, you will understand that, like, while AI can do like good, but there's still a huge gap to fill if you really have to meet Primal Hunter benchmark or Solo Leveling benchmark, right? Which people really, really love, right? And that's the gap that we feel that Pocket can fill because of the sheer amount of data we have for this specific domain knowledge, right? You must have heard that there are a lot of TTS companies out there, but the focus of those companies is generally transactional TTS, solving for call centers, solving for enterprises, right? Very few companies are focusing on the storytelling, very high quality TTS, right? So yeah, I think you can tune into some of our shows, Primal Hunter for one, Solo Leveling second, and you can just compare the impact of high quality human voices, human production, as opposed to the AI production.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on video. Microdramas is a category that we've covered on this live stream as well. And it's a topic that keeps on coming up again and again. Different models are being innovated there. There's AI versions of it, there's human shot and edited versions of it. What are your thoughts on video and microdramas?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good category with very high TAM for sure. But the fact is that the moat is still missing, right? Let's say a very simple question to ask is that there are 20 players in India who are doing microdrama. There are 20 players in US who are doing microdrama. Now, if I have to select a winner, I can't do that, right? Because every single platform serves same content, they have same model, they have same retention, right? So now, like, as a consumer, as a VC, as anyone, right, how do I pick which who's the winner, right? Because there's no moat, there's no differentiation, right? So while the category is very hot, I think the winner is still not there, right? Because the retention of this category is still pretty poor, right? So I think we are still like closely observing this category, but like in terms of the Pocket has innovated the long form storytelling, right? So we will be, I think, betting on the long form videos as opposed to short drama, which is 2 hours. Pocket is going to bet on the long form video drama itself, right? Which could range from, let's say, 20 hours of video drama to 100 hours of video drama, right? And this is going to be a pure AI video product itself, right? So we don't want to compete on the short drama side because, again, as I mentioned, it's very crowded. There's no moat. Uh, Again, the category is pretty exciting, but it's very hard to pick one winner, right? There's no differentiation. So Pocket is going to play, I think, the long form video.
What do the economics look like? I mean, 20 hours of AI generated video, I think that's going to be expensive, right? So the subscription
Yeah,
price or the transaction price has to be higher.
yeah, I think that's where I think again we are also innovating internally on building platform and the video harnesses, which takes per hour pricing cheaper to most of the other platforms that offer video production in AI, right? So we are seeing, I think we have some of the initial numbers as well. We can produce video dramas as low as $400 per hour in some of the recent experiments, right? Which is 7 to 8x cheaper than some of the other platforms. And if we can scale this up, I think we can really, really kill this sort of like long form video drama itself. Yeah.
Pratik, so you guys are absolutely clear on your identity, right? Which is long form audio storytelling. But for some of these blockbusters, which I don't know, in their own are icons in their own right, do you collaborate with people to replicate them across formats? I'm talking, I don't know, books, comic strips, and we covered video already.
Yeah, I think so. So, like, if you think about, let's say, all the format that exist in entertainment, right? The core of all the formats is the underlying script, right? If the script is good, right, you can actually create any format, right? Audio
Mm.
is just a layer on top of a good script, right? I took that example of My Vampire System, right? So My Vampire System is a really, really good script, right? I'm not saying it's a good audio series as well, but audio series worked because the script itself is so good that audio had to work, right? This MVS now can be created in video format as well, long form video drama. It can be converted to comics as well. it can be converted to a game as well. We can also, if we own the content, we can also license this to OTT platforms, per se, for example, right? So that they can create and produce web series and movies, right? Now what Pocket Focus is at this point is to build this foundational layer of UGC content, right, which is the text content, right? And if you can scale this platform, which basically produces really high quality scripts, I think creating other formats is just a matter of time with AI, right? As I mentioned, we're anyway like innovating on the video production side. Comics can be done easily as well, right? Even you must have seen this category called interactive stories, which is also one of the hottest category in SF, right? Interactive stories where you have to pick an option and you can just like it can you can actually hyper personalize a story, right, based on the what users pick, right? You can also create that as well for MVS or Saving Nora, right? So I think we want to focus on fewer formats to start with, like audio and video, but the sole focus of Pocket is to build this foundational UGC platform, scale this globally, have a million creators writing for Pocket, and once this scales, I think we'll look for launching more formats. We'll look to partner with more and more players to license our content to create, let's say, different formats, games, comics, and whatnot, right?
Got it. So a related question, Pratik, would be if the script is the core IP, what is your philosophy on protecting the IP?
Yeah. So I think in terms of when you talk about UGC platform, uh, Pocket generally owns 80% of those IPs, right? We share royalty with our writers, right? In certain cases, of course, writers do also own the IP, but in case of 80% of IPs, Pocket owns the uh, IPs of all the UGC content, especially the derivative formats as well, like video, comics, games as well, right?
Is this
So
the case for other UGC platforms, like the biggest one being YouTube in the world? Do they
yeah,
own IP that we put up?
it is, right, especially for like fiction writing platforms, because like in Instagram is like a very short-lived
Hmm.
product, right? I mean, like when you create a short or when you create a YouTube video, you don't expect that to work for 10 years, right? Unlike a fiction story, in Pocket a story can have a lifespan of 10 years, 20 years, right? So in case of like other UGC platform, it might not make sense, right? But because the content is very short-lived, right? A reel or a TikTok is like it has a lifespan of maximum 1 month, right? So licensing or that sort of thing doesn't work there. But in case of fiction story or fiction writing, it does make sense a lot, right? And we have to, in those cases, I think we have rights to produced derivative formats, and Pocket owns the rights of these IPs
Have you
as we.
guys ever delivered a sleeper hit, Pratik? If the average shelf life for fictional stories 8 to 10 years, has a story ever been discovered way after it was first written and uploaded to the platform?
Yeah, I think so. I think these are like I have like lots of example where I think stories, especially the blockbuster ones, were actually discovered 2.5 years after they were launched within Pocket platform. Right? There's this show called uh, this show called Weakest Beast Tamer. It's a beast taming show. You must have seen this movie called How to Train Your Dragon, right? It's also a beast taming show, right? Series movie. So this show was launched like a couple of years back, and it's at times like it's also about having right audience for that show. So maybe like 2 years back, we did not have the right audience for that show, so we couldn't predict that this show would become blockbuster. Now, in last 2 years, as we started getting right audience for that specific category, we saw that this show actually starting having crazy numbers, right? And we discovered that hey, this show could be one of the next blockbusters. And now it's like one of the best shows, one of the bigger shows in Pocket after MBS, right? So in Pocket, I think as I mentioned, I think you can discover shows after 3 years as well, 4 years as well, because lifespan is 10 to 15 years in general. Yeah.
Prateek, we're almost coming to the end of time, but I think zooming out a little bit, you're the co-founder of a content company and building AI native tools and taking the company to an AI native stage as well. When it's becoming so easy to create content, like how does good content differentiate itself from like general mass content or AI slop, basically?
I think this is one of the most important, I think, question to us as well, because although uh, it a lot is about creator platform scaling that up, but the consumers have to like the content, right? If they don't like the content, then it's very hard to scale the platform, right? So I think the way it works basically is that uh, any UGC platform, any UGC content, right, gets through a sampling algorithm, right? Let's say if we are producing 110,000 series in a month, all of that series basically goes through multiple stages of sampling, right? Now that sampling layer basically makes sure that the content is actually meet certain criteria, right? Now this sampling layer could have a LLM evaluation layer, right, where we don't have to give that content real users, but LLMs can generally evaluate that show itself, right? Now, if LLM meet if the LLM evaluation meets the criteria, then it goes to the next stage of, let's say, testing on real users, right? Of, let's say, 50, 60 users, right? And then after that, it gets propagated to, let's say, millions or thousands of users, right? So this multi-layered sampling is something that we have built to make sure that the content with high quality, be it PGC, be it UCC, gets a lot of users, and the content which is of, let's say, of lower quality doesn't get a lot of exposure, right? And that's fine as well, right? Because writers do learn very frequently, right? So in Pocket, you will see a lot of writers iterate through their shows, right? So they will launch a show, they'll get feedback from sampling layer, they will iterate and fix those issues, they will launch another show. So even at times I have seen writers writing blockbuster after 7 8 attempts as well, right? So while this works for users, it's very important to basically make sure that we are giving sufficient data back to our writers as well, so that they can learn and improve their content over the time as well,
And have
right?
you seen people who've done books or are celebrated authors come to your platform and write content for you?
Yeah, I think we are seeing that influx now. I think one of the most amazing thing that we have seen is that the distribution is a global distribution, right? Let's say if you think about Indian writers, they had a very difficult time in basically getting their novels published to US audience, right? And with Pocket, they can actually distribute their content to global audience, right, without any gatekeeping, right? So we see, in fact, like one of the writer we have is earning $100,000, $68,000 to $80,000 per month, right? He's a Hyderabad-based writer. He has written a show
Wow.
for US and UK audience, and that show is earning half a million dollar revenue, and then the writer earns 70, 80 lakh rupees per month, right? So with these examples coming up, because of the distribution that we have, a global distribution, we see a lot of top writers now getting attracted to write for Pocket and then get this global distribution for free. Yeah.
I'm wondering if we can do a live brainstorm. So I'm going to bring up the founder manual. Prateek, this is a book that this is the offline book authored by Utsav, and it covers the stories of all offline members. And of course, it's a work of nonfiction. It's founder journeys.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if there's a way we can fictionalize parts of it and export it to a global audience. You think
For
something like that could work?
For sure. I think we are actually working with a lot of other partners as well to bring these old stories to life and basically adapt it to global audiences. We can for sure do that. I think do reach out to us. We'll help you guys with that. Yeah.
All right. So maybe a final philosophical question again from a YouTube chat. Question from Alexandra. When you're at this scale, what does a win mean for you? Is it like the next revenue milestone, a blockbuster series, a territory expansion, or something completely different?
I think numbers aside, numbers is always again like there. I think numbers is something that again are pretty common for all the companies. But for us, I think the mission is to basically create one of the largest creator platform globally, where we enable local talent, right? Which was not possible till now because local talent, again, as I mentioned, had to go through this gatekeeping process, and it was not democratized, right? Especially the fiction writing part. So I think our core mission is basically to create world's largest AI created platform where we can find local talent, give them a platform which, by using that, they can distribute their content globally, and of course, like change their lives.
Awesome. I think, Prateek, that's a solid note to end the show on. Thank you so much for coming on our live stream.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks,
Cheers.
X. Yes, yeah. Bye.
All right, folks, we're tuning out. We'll see you on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Bye-bye.